What is going on? Welcome to the Penn State Rivals YouTube channel. I am your current host and analyst for Rivals, Josh Taylor. And joining me on this episode is someone that Penn State football fans are obviously familiar with. He definitely has his face out there still with recruiting. I saw an episode with Clifford we'll talk a little bit about as well. That is 2013 true freshman All-American, who's also a second-team All-American in 2016 and 17, I believe. And host of Breneman Shows Up and current college football analyst. That is Adam Breneman. What's going on, man?
What's up, man? Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. As you know, I'm new to the Penn State community. So connecting with Adam, I watched you playing on TV back in 2013. I was like, this is a guy I've got to talk to on the show. So appreciate you coming on. I know you coached tight ends as well at Arizona State. And like I said, you're still currently doing a lot of stuff with college football. Are you with CBS Sports right now, or where are you going?
No, so I was with CBS when I before I got into coaching for about a year in 2019. I did a radio show with CBS. I'm trying to figure some things out right now about what I'm going to be doing for football season coming up here fast. So yeah, we'll see pretty soon. Obviously, and having a lot of discussions about what route I want to go, if I want to do radio, podcast, TV stuff. So we'll see. But welcome to the Rivals family, man. It's a great site. Welcome to the Penn State beat.
I know, it's crazy. Penn State family is huge. I've learned that quick.
For sure.
And obviously, even though it's the offseason, recruiting this month's been huge. We'll talk about that. But as always, guys, hit that subscribe button. We're going to be bringing you all a ton of content, like I said, especially with this month with recruiting, a lot of big names. But we're going to talk a little bit about just the state of the program. This is called the Penn State of the program. That's what I'm going to call the episode. So looking back at last year real quick, I paid close attention to Penn State. My family actually has some Penn State ties to it. So I've always kind of kept up with Penn State football. But just going back over everything, I remember when they start 5-0, big wins over Wisconsin and Auburn. I hate Auburn. I'm a closet Alabama fan, by the way. So like that alone, that game got me hyped up. But then you see them lose 3 straight games, and they're close ones. So it's Iowa by 3, Illinois in that heartbreaking overtime loss by 2, and then Ohio State by 9. But then they also lose to Michigan a couple weeks later by 4, and Michigan State by 3. Finished 7-6 and 4-5 in the Big Ten. When you really take a look at last season, what went wrong with Penn State in just not being able to close out these games?
I mean, when you look at last season, I think it really, the season shifted when Sean Clifford got hurt against Iowa. And I'm not one to make excuses, but that changed the whole season. I mean, Penn State sitting there top 4 in the country, looking like they got a chance to run the table, win the Big Ten. If they beat Iowa that week, I think things are obviously a lot different. Sean Clifford gets hurt, and things just aren't really the same after that. And it was tough. Clifford was playing at a really high level. That offense was it wasn't playing probably where they wanted it to be, but it was had some synergy there, and the defense was obviously the defense played extremely well against Wisconsin in week 1, and I mean, yeah, they were playing really well until that week 6, I believe, week 5 game against Iowa. So, I think you can always make excuses and point things in a certain direction, but I think that had a lot to do with it. And I'm looking forward to seeing Sean, hopefully be healthy for a full season and see what they can do. And because even when he came back, when he came back, he was still banged up, was dealing with some injuries, and he wasn't 100%. So hopefully he can kind of get a fresh start this season. And now that it's his 13th year of college football. And I think what is it actually 6th, I think, or 7th or something.
Yeah, 6. Coming back for that final season, with COVID, you get that extra year.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, that's one thing I want to talk to you about. Penn State's in this really weird situation with quarterback, something that a lot of teams would die, to be in that situation. It's having that veteran guy with Sean Clifford, but then also you see what Christian Velu looked like last year against Rutgers, especially, looked great in that game. Then you have a 5-star recruit with Drew Aller. It's kind of like, hey, you have this 5-star guy that you want to play, but then you also are just so lucky to have that veteran in the locker room with Clifford. What, as a player, and then also as a coach, how do you really look at that situation? Obviously, this is Clifford's team, but how do you handle that throughout the season with, maybe Clifford has a bad game, or people on Twitter and the fans, they're like, hey, we have this 5-star, you're recruiting your butt off, you're doing well. Maybe it's, does he get opportunities? How do you really see it playing out?
I think it's something that everyone deals with in college football nowadays, right? There's always another guy who's talented and highly recruited that's coming back, or that's there as a backup. I think Sean's mature, and I asked him about this when I interviewed him on my show, and I think obviously too, whenever you're in your sixth year, or in your senior year, there's a little bit less of a leash. I feel like because there's not really time after that to develop you. They're either like, you got to produce or you're out, and they'll put the younger guy in and get the younger guy some experience. So I think Sean's aware of that, but I think Coach Franklin shows commitment to Sean so far in his career. He's stuck by him a lot. He's defended him to the media a ton. I think it's pretty clear that this is Sean's team and Sean's season, and I think it'll be good. I mean, when you have guys like Drew Allar and Prbula, you don't want to rush them into things. Yeah, obviously you have Christian Vallejo as well, but still, it's good for those guys to like learn from a guy like Sean. And I think another example is I talked to Trace McSorley on my show, and
Legend,
he
absolute
talks a
legend.
lot about he talks a lot about how much he benefited from sitting behind Christian Hackenberg for 2 seasons, and like how that changed the trajectory of his career. And if he would have had to play as a freshman, it could have ruined things for him. So I think that it's a good thing, and hopefully Sean. I know Sean's a good dude and a leader, and he's definitely leading the way for those guys to to figure out to develop them, to figure out who's going to take the reins in 2023.
Yeah, I mean, having him come in, I think this is a season where honestly, I feel like there's just no fear. Just let it rip. Just be yourself. You've been there long enough. You know the culture. You have these young guys that you're leading along the way. But just go out there and play your football. Like, there's nothing that should be holding him back. Like, he's used to this at this point. Looking at another position that's always got a top guy, as you see this Washington flag here, drafting Jahan Dotson was huge for us. You look at this wide receiver room. Parker Washington, you hear his name with the scouts, you listen to the Draft Network, PFF, all these guys like, hey, Parker Washington, he's the next guy in the draft. But I'm telling people, don't sleep on Mitchell Tinsley transferring over from Western Kentucky. I know, have you looked at this wide receiver room a lot? What's your first thoughts? Obviously, Dotson's a huge loss, but like I said, Parker's next up, and then you get a good transfer coming in this college free agency period.
Yeah, I got to see some of those guys when I was at practice over spring for a day, so saw some of them. I mean, Mitchell Tinsley's special. He's a veteran. He's played a lot of football. Obviously transferred in, and I think he's got a chance to be really, really special, and kind of what they've been missing. I feel like as kind of that like true possession receiver. He may not be a big play threat, but he's a veteran voice for that room. Obviously, Parker's a special player. I think he's going to be really good. I think Caden Saunders as the freshman is going to be a really good player. I'm excited to see like what some of those freshmen do that get in there. Anthony Ivy's a really good one from Pennsylvania, going to Penn State, will be a true freshman here this year. And then Lambert Smith's played a lot of football for him and made some big plays. So it's a good room, and I think they've developed pretty well in that room. Obviously with guys like Jahan and KJ Hamler and guys like that. I think there's a chance to have a couple guys pop off and have big seasons, and Sean's going to need those guys to have a really, really productive years for him. And I think he also is going to look to that tight end room. That tight end room is as deep as probably any tight end room in college football right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys coming back. Like I said, just like with Clifford, you want these guys that have been there. They know what to expect. They can bring on, whether it's a veteran guy who transferred in or it's some of these young guys. Obviously, with recruiting, like I said, there's a lot of young guys who can contribute on this team, especially in the wide receiver room. I mean, you see the recruits still coming in. You get a guy like Yazid Haynes, who's another guy who could possibly contribute next year when he comes in. Looking at this recruiting class for 2023, for me, it looks like it can definitely be one of these special classes, and it's not even done yet. There's still some huge names coming up in July. They're currently right now 6th overall team-wise on the Rivals ranking. What do you see from this class that really stands out, that really says like, hey, a lot of 4-stars are on this recruiting class here?
I think first of all, getting Alex Birchmeyer was just a huge pull for Coach Franklin, and he's a guy. When I was at Arizona State, I remember seeing him, 2 years ago, when he was probably a freshman or sophomore in high school, and seeing how special he was. I think we were one of his first offers at ASU. He's a really, really good player, and to be able to go into Virginia and get a guy like that, it's a big, big time recruiting win, and it kind of sets the tone for your class. So I think he's a really good one. I like what they've done at tight end. Obviously that's a position I follow. I think Joey Slaffer, I think is how you say
Yep.
his Slaffer is how you say his last name. He's a big, long tight end from in-state kid from Pennsylvania. So I mean, anytime you get guys like that, I think is a good thing for the program and a good thing to show that you can recruit your home state and make sure he doesn't go to Pitt. And then Matthias Barnwell is a tight end. I'm not sure where, is he going to play D end? Is he going to be, where they're going to use him on the field? But at tight end, especially, I think he's a good one. Ty Howe's done a really good job recruiting tight ends since he's been there the last couple of years. So I think there's a lot of positives, in that room. They've recruited the state well in 23. They've gone down to Florida, they've gone to Alabama. I mean, they've gone all over and had some really big recruiting wins against some of the blue bloods of college football. So I mean, recruiting has always been a strong suit for Coach Franklin and company. And I know, as you know, like the lifeblood of your program in college football is how well you recruit. And I think that these classes they're stacking together the 22 class, which was obviously an all timer for Penn State, the 23 class, which looks to be the same way. Penn State's going to be in position if they can get a couple key transfers out of the portal to be one of the top programs in college football as they've been the last decade or so.
Yeah, obviously big states, like you said, Alabama, like Texas, Florida. Those are the ones you want to go in and take away from these, blue collar, Alabama, Auburn, Florida State, Miami, Texas A&M, and Texas Longhorns on the rise.
Yeah,
I'm here in Virginia. I'm straight out of Central Virginia. That's my hometown. Seeing all these guys
awesome.
like Fredericksburg, that's where I grew up. I think they said 7 of the top 8 high school players in Virginia are committed to Penn State, which is wild, by the way.
It's huge. Yeah.
Virginia Tech has always done a great job committing, keeping their guys in state. UVA really hasn't, sadly. But just being able to go into states like this, Brandon Smith actually went to my high school. So that's what I'm used to, is seeing Penn State coming into Virginia and just taking the top talent and taking it back to Penn State. Obviously huge. Like I said, King Mack committing today, another big timer out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Just taking those guys out of this big name states. And I mean, I think this 23 class is going to be insane. Like I said, 22 is already phenomenal. Obviously great classes, but you see that 7 and 6. Does that kind of balance out? Like, is there any pressure on Franklin to kind of convert this to winning on the field and, possibly winning the Big Ten? You're recruiting well, but what comes after that? Or does this kind of relieve some of that pressure a little bit of, not winning the Big Ten?
Yeah, it's a good point. I think obviously anytime you're at a place like Penn State, there's pressure, right? There's pressure every single season. As we've seen in college football, the leash is not very long for losing at the blue blood, programs. You got to win, and you got to win now. And it's a very much a what have you done for me lately business, and people don't care what you did in 2016 and that you won a Big Ten championship. With that said, I think there's no doubt in any rational fan's mind that Penn State's football program is in a better place today than it was when Coach Franklin got there, and it's really not even close. I'm not sure how anyone can even debate that. They're recruiting at a higher level than they really ever have. They're developing talent and getting them in the NFL. They've had some tough breaks, I think, in some seasons. Obviously, you got to win more games. I think the COVID year was tough for everybody. A lot of unknown there. Last season, could have gone a lot of different ways if they win that Iowa game. And but that's not to make excuses. Like, they need to win. They need to win football games, and they need to be back to being in the conversation of winning the Big Ten every single year. And I think Coach Franklin knows that, and he feels that pressure. But I think anyone who questions, because I have heard some of the chatter from even former players and about kind of the chatter about his extension and things like that. I don't think anyone who really knows football and knows Penn State has no question that Coach Franklin is the right man for that job and is building the program to last for a long time, building it the right way from the ground up with high school recruiting and developing his players in-house. And I think he's built a really strong culture there. His players love him. He's got Sean Clifford back for his 6th year. I think the state of the program is as strong as it's been in a long time, and I'm excited to see that translate to, hopefully a Big Ten championship here soon.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't really get to, hear much or pay attention much to Coach Franklin until I was at the Senior Bowl this year, and they actually had a summit, and it was Coach Harsin from Auburn, Nick Saban was there, Sarkisian was there, but then so was Franklin. I just heard him talk about how he goes into the living room, talks to these families, and how he recruits, and just the standard that's there, the culture that he has set there at Penn State. I'm like, man, like it like no wonder why they have these top recruiting programs. And I agree with you. I don't think the recruiting or the product on the field or the product on, come April in the draft would be what it was if it wasn't for Franklin. I see Penn State took such a huge leap, but now you have more pressure coming in, as we find out today, with expansion with USC and UCLA coming over in 2024. You have USC and Coach Riley now. UCLA is what it is. There's talks maybe Oregon and Washington could file as well. It just another factor with, NIL has been going on. They're debating all that, going back and forth, trying to set to make sure there's certain standards and, people aren't breaking rules. And the same with the transfer portal. And now you add more pressure. What does this really mean for not just Coach Franklin, but just Penn State in general, adding, I would say, 2 powerhouses in the Big 12 with UCLA and USC now coming over into a really weird Big 12? Like, I don't know what this is going to look like map wise, but what's the implications for Penn State come in 2024?
I think it's an exciting thing for Penn State and Penn State fans. I mean, anytime you can, up the level of competition in your conference, and I think the players want good on good, the fans want good on good, and now they're truly getting it. I mean, whenever you can add a blue blood program like USC, who's one of the most historic and one of the greatest traditions in the history of college football, I think it's exciting. I mean, obviously there's more competition now, and the recruiting is, Penn State's always recruited against USC and a lot of different, Penn State goes to California for players, USC goes national, obviously, but to be now head to head with USC I think it's sweet. I mean, I think, and I think naturally the Penn State and USC brands, I think will form kind of a natural rivalry because of just the kind of programs they both are. They both, us Penn Staters and them USCers both think very highly of themselves and ourselves, and the cultures are very strong. I think it'll be a nice natural rivalry, and it's going to be exciting. I mean, I'm excited to see USC try to come to Happy Valley in November when it's 10 degrees out. So we'll see how it goes. But overall, I think it's a good thing for college football. I think it's the thing that people are not upset about, but just everyone's caught off guard because listen, we're seeing the most change in college football that we've seen ever in my lifetime, and really since. I don't even know when. I mean, really, in the last decades of college football, we've never seen this much change. I mean, you have so many things happening at once right now: NIL, transfer portal, coaches' salaries being at all-time highs. You got media rights deals going just crazy. The Big Ten deals still get negotiated, and now you have conference realignment, and you got the NCAA even regulating college football anymore? And now you have the super conferences kind of forming, and really it's all across the board. It's really just the professionalism of college football. Everything's getting professionalized in college football, and this is I think this is kind of the just another part of it is forming these super conferences. And I think I wouldn't be surprised to see, and I tweeted about it a little bit ago, like we see the Big Ten, the SEC, and the Big 12 all go to 20 teams and form 3 super conferences and play it out that way.
That'd be wild. I mean, just with Penn State and USC, I remember that Rose Bowl was in 2017. It was Darnold versus McSorley and Saquon Barkley. Yep. That was one of my favorite games all time.
Yeah.
So if you can get that every year, like sign me up. But then you think about all the coaches. You got James Franklin, you got Ryan Day, Lincoln Riley, Harbaugh. You have all these different personalities and just going at it in the same conference there. I love it. Like I think it's super weird that you have 2 California teams coming all the way up north. Like the map just doesn't look right. And like you said, I don't know what this alignment looks like, what other teams are going to do. But as a Penn State fan, you have to be excited. Like being able to say, hey, we're going to face USC in a whiteout in November. Like
Right.
how hyped would that get you? Like for me, I love it. But obviously, like, I don't know, like, do you think it kind of bothers fans at all, like with traveling, like, or the families that go like all the way to California from Pennsylvania or like Rutgers to
Yeah.
USC? Does that, like, do you think that has any implications for like fans or like recruiting or anything like that?
I mean, maybe a little bit, but I mean, I think overall the pros outweigh the cons. I mean, getting to see a Penn State USC rivalry every year, I think will beat out any travel concerns that fans have. Again,
Yeah,
I think
find
it's
me out.
I think it's an exciting thing for college football. I think we've grown up accustomed to conferences meaning geographical alignment, and that's just not the case anymore. I mean, no one cares about geographical alignment. It's when it comes to media rights and what's best for the schools and the conferences. I mean, they don't care where schools are at. It's let's group together the best schools we can. I mean, you really saw it first when the American Athletic Conference went together and just spread out all over the country, and then it started happening with Texas joining the SEC, and then just started to spread out more and more. And now you got national conferences all over college football. So it seems like no one really cares anymore where the school's at if it makes sense financially for the conference.
Yeah, I agree with you. Just win your games, win the Big Ten, and honestly, no one really cares about who's
No
playing
doubt.
where.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I could see USC like talking about like the Rose Bowl redemption games, stuff like that. As a fan in general, I'm like, I sign me up for this. I love it. Now let's look a little bit at this season coming up. Obviously, they start out Thursday night against Purdue in like a primetime game on Fox. But let's just dive deeper into it as expectations. Like you said, Clifford's coming back. You have a lot of veterans on defense. This is what you're known for, like a hard-nosed defense, great wide receivers, your veteran quarterback. Open up at Purdue. Purdue, don't sleep on them. Like at Purdue, hard place to play. It's on a Thursday night, kind of weird. But then you play at Auburn this season. You beat them at home, but now can you do the same thing over at Jordan-Hare Stadium, which is obviously not an easy place to play.
Mm-hmm.
But then you got some of these other noticeable away games, Michigan, at Indiana, at Rutgers. You're lucky enough to get Ohio State, Maryland, Michigan State at home. How do you think the schedule really favors for Penn State? Like I said, I think for me, the one that stands out the most is at Auburn and then being able to play Ohio State at home. How do you feel about the schedule, based off of the expectations and then just how everything played out last year?
Yeah, I mean that Auburn game makes it difficult. Whenever you got to face an SEC opponent in your non-conference game, it's not gonna be an easy one. But the good thing is Auburn, the state of the Auburn program isn't great right now.
No.
So I think that's a game they should win. They're going to be favored even though they're on the road. I'm guessing as of right now. I think at Purdue to start the season, they got to come out strong. Obviously, like can't lose that game. I think going to Michigan obviously is always tough. So I think they go to Michigan like week 5 or 6. So that'll be a big, those first 6 games or first 5 games obviously will kind of set the tone. But too, you think about last season, they went into week 5, number 4 in the country, and then finished 7-6. So a lot can change in a few games, a long season. Like you said, having Ohio State at home is big, and I think they expect as far as expectations. I think it's you got to compete for the Big Ten championship year in and year out, and I think that's Sean Clifford's back. They've recruited really really well. They've done well in the transfer portal. Mitchell Tinsley came in. They've done well in defensive recruiting. Got a couple transfer guys. I think you got to make a play for the Big Ten championship this season, or fans are going to be disappointed, and rightfully so.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just not being able to take advantage of beating Auburn last season, that 5-0 start, and then, like you said, kind of just things not playing out. I feel like the schedule, if you get past Auburn, even if you lose to Auburn, you go, let's say 4-1, you have your bye week, then you play at Michigan after your bye week. I like that they play Auburn early because, like you said, there's a lot going on there. I feel like Penn State's going to be more settled in, not as crazy as Auburn is. They're still trying to figure stuff out. They're not going to be as settled in as a team. Penn State goes over there. I think they can sneak out a win at Auburn. But then, like I said, going to Michigan, that's not an easy one. So you want to try to get past these Michigan, Minnesota, Ohio State, Indiana, all back to back to back. It's the Big Ten. You don't really ever have a week off like you saw last year. Illinois in overtime. These ones that you're expected to win. I feel like
you got to win those games.
Yeah, you can't slouch against these guys who you're supposed to beat. What do you think? Obviously, winning the Big Ten is big, but say they don't win the Big Ten. What do you really call a successful season for Penn State football for this season coming up?
Yeah, it's a that's the age old question, right? I mean, I think yeah, it's tough. I think you got to win 9 or 10 games. Yeah, I think that's probably. I think 9 wins is probably the threshold for for a good season at Penn State. Obviously by year it dictates like what gets you in the Big Ten championship. Some years it may be 9 wins, some years it's 10, some years it's 11. So obviously having Ohio State and Michigan on their side of the conference makes it more difficult to get there. But yeah, I mean, I think they got to win 9, 10 games, and at the end of the day, college football is a game that's up and down. You got things happen. I think the most disappointing part about last season was just kind of the lack of competitiveness. Not lack of competitiveness, but just losing all those games in a row it just was demoralizing for the fan base. It's such a drastic change from where they were in week 5 to the end.
Oh, yeah.
So just more consistency, I think, are what fans want to see. And again, I think a lot of fans realize that Coach Franklin's got this program going in the right direction. And I truly believe this. This isn't just a homer and me talking. I really believe that if Penn State doesn't get impatient and they let Coach Franklin continue to build this thing, he's built it now for what's it been, almost 7 years now? Is that he's been there 8 years now probably. If they give him some more time, and just let them keep developing it, like Penn State will reap the benefits. I truly believe they'll be in a national championship game under Coach Franklin. But they just need to be patient and understand that things don't happen overnight. And just understand. It's amazing. And as you can tell, I'm fired up about. I've seen a lot of comments about Coach Franklin recently, especially with the NIL talk and things like that. I mean,
But I think he does things the right way, and I think that's what can upset some people. Like you see the Texas A&M video talking about money. You see Nick Saban and Fisher going at it, but Rich Franklin does things the right way. Like it feels good knowing you're successful at recruiting, but you're still doing it the way that it's supposed to be done. And some people are like, oh, if he threw more money out there, if he did more NIL deals, like we land big players, like. The recruiting's not the problem. Like if you just go on to rivals.com and like look at the recruiting class, the product is there. It's coming. Like I said, just give it some more time. But that's what you think mostly it probably is that people are kind of, turned off by is, like you said, the NIL stuff. You think that's really why people are kind of hard on Coach Franklin?
Yeah, I mean, I think whenever you're a head coach in big time college football, you're going to have people say things. I think, yeah, some part of it's the NIL stuff, part of it's just last season. I just think people need to understand that Penn State's in a much better place than it was, 8 years ago. Definitely in a much better place than it was when I left that program. I think they're on the right path. They're recruiting really well. The culture is great. Fan base is as fired up as it's ever been. And I'm excited for the future. I think it's going to be it's a great time to be a Penn State fan, man. A lot of good things happening. Now we just need to go win the championship.
Yeah, tickets are selling out fast. I saw that the other day. They were talking about student tickets. I mean, like minutes and hours, they're not lasting at all. I think last year really shows you just the roller coaster of college football, of how good this team really can be, and then what happens when things pop up and don't go your way. So obviously, like I said, this next season is huge for Coach Franklin. Recruiting wise, I feel good about it. I think the schedule plays out for it. Don't be surprised if you see him in the Big Ten championship. There's a lot of draft guys I'm studying on the team. Joey Porter Jr., a lot of veteran guys on this defense. I think that defense isn't being talked about enough for experienced guys. So I'm excited about this season. You're hyped up about it. I'm right there with you. I appreciate you coming on with me. Just tell everyone where they can find your stuff and keep up with you as you continue this journey giving back to football.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I'm on Twitter at Adam Breneman81, TikTok, Adam Breneman81, Instagram at Adam Breneman. You can find me on YouTube. My podcast is anywhere you can find a podcast. You can just search my name and it'll come up. So have had a lot of Penn State guys on, everyone from freaking Mike Gesicki to Nick Scott to Sean Clifford to Trace McSorley to Pat Fryermuth. So it's a good show for Penn State fans, but also non-Penn State fans as we branch out a little bit too. So, but I appreciate having me on, man. It's been fun talking Penn State with you. We'll have to do it again soon.
Oh yeah, we're going to talk about that Caleb Williams take about Heisman. By the way,
You saw that?
that was a hot take, but I respected the odds were good. But Will Anderson and Bryce Young got something to say for sure. But I appreciate y'all tuning in. So, like I said, subscribe to the channel and always subscribe to Rivals.com as we continue to bring you the best with recruiting news with this historic 2023 class. I'm Josh Taylor. And I will see y'all on the next episode.